Well, the 49ers are on their way to losing to the Minnesota Vikings by a score of 23-17. Onside kick was just recovered by the Vikings. That should pretty much do it. And man, what a disappointing loss. Yet again, the 49ers can't find a way to win in Minnesota. I don't know what it is about that place. It's absolutely cursed. I'll tell you what it is. I should have gone to the game, Sunil, because when I go to the games, the 49ers win. That's why they'll win next week. So have no fear, 49er fans. Sunil and I will be in the building. It's a guaranteed win. But the 49ers do lose today. Drop a game in week 2. Very interesting, sloppy game overall. And Sunil and I are going to break it all down next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And it's the post-game show. David, bringing us bad luck, is at the game, so he's not here. Sunil is filling in for David. What's up, Sunil? It's so good to see your face, man. It's been a while.
Right. I mean, look, there's been worse things to happen in this world than 49ers losing a game this early. The silver lining is right now, hopefully New England can pull out an overtime victory against the Seahawks, and the 49ers will still be, tied for the lead in the NFC West. Ultimately, it's just, it's tough to see the loss, but still a lot of season to be played.
Yeah, man, there's I can't wait to watch the film on this one because I want to know how the offensive line held up at times. I want to know, there was a couple times I just felt like Purdy was pretty hesitant today. I know I was texting with Marco throughout the game, and before he threw that pick, I said, is it me? Because his stats were really good. I said, is it me or does he seem off today? He had a couple like really high completions to Debo, third downs. It seemed like something was off, and then he threw the pick. Then he had the open hand fumble. Like, I don't know. It was just a weird game all around. Minnesota, weird things happen. But to me, like the most disappointing thing was the final stretch where you get a touchdown after everything that's gone bad in this game, Sunil. So much had gone wrong, but you get the touchdown and you're facing a Minnesota offense that doesn't have Addison, doesn't have Jefferson, doesn't have Hawkinson. Aaron Jones gets hurt on the drive, and you can't stop them from scoring freaking points. That was super disappointing to watch.
Yeah, and Sam Darnold's the quarterback. So
exactly, yeah. Hey, he tried to turn the ball over multiple times throughout that game.
And got to give credit to Minnesota. Obviously, they were nobody really believed that they were going to go in and win. They ended up getting a victory. There's that, usually did the Minnesota win or did the 49ers lose? I personally think this is a 49er lost the game, right? They had every chance and should have, won this game based off of everything you just listed, plus more. I agree with you. I mean, Brock Purdy had an off game. Brock Purdy's usually really, really good against the blitz, Jesse. And for some reason, he didn't eat the blitz alive like he usually does. Seems like, Flores, I think Flores won this matchup against Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan wasn't able to adjust to where that off blitzer was. Constantly confused Brock Purdy and this offense. Brock Purdy was making terrible decisions, I think, throughout the game. And ultimately, I think you would like to obviously get a win to learn from this loss, but to learn from this game. Ultimately, it's a loss, but I think there still is a lot to learn from this game. There are bright spots, I think, that were still there and things that the 49ers could get better at. So, ultimately, it's still a long season and one loss shouldn't derail them either way.
Yeah, luckily the loss is in week 2. So it's, in the grand scheme of things, not the end of the world. I don't know. I think the Lions might have lost. At least last time I saw, they were down. And I think it was like 4th and 4th and 8 or something at the Tampa Bay 11. So I think the Lions might have lost. The Rams already have a loss in the division. Seattle might lose. So there's Packers have a loss. So there's a lot going on very, very early in the season. I don't know that you gave up any ground when it's all said and done, but in a game that you're supposed to win or should win, when other teams are losing, you want to take advantage. Hey, you want these are the games that if you win, or you might look back on and be like, man, that was the Minnesota game is what stopped you from getting the number 1 seed. And they had the opportunity. They still had the opportunity. As bad as things had gotten, they still had the opportunity. So I see a comment here, and I'll just start with this because this was kind of going to be a question anyways. Who do you think is to blame for this loss?
Yeah, and I think I'm going to ultimately put this on Shanahan. And the reason for that, early in the game, there was a lot of penalties. There was just the play calling didn't seem to be effective. And I've talked about this over the last 2 years with you, Jesse. Like the 49ers struggle to play, like to start the game fast. When they they're pretty dominant when they could score on their first time down or within their first 2 drives. And in this game, they weren't, it took them a long time to score. So to me, you got to put that on Kyle Shanahan. I mean, I don't understand why you throw 3 downs on an opening drive when you have, Mason, who just seems to churn out 5-6 yards every single time you give him the ball. I think that he got too cute in this game, and I think it affected. So I'm going to put it on Kyle Shanahan. I mean, obviously, I still think they were in position to win, and there was some lack of execution. But I think they should have been way more prepared for this game. And you can't let Minnesota defense, be able to be as effective against this all pro on every level offense, and they were. So I put that on Shanahan.
Yeah, I mean the offense as a whole just wasn't great. I mean this was my concern coming into this is you have Flores on the other side, who's a very, very good defensive coordinator. I talked about him so much throughout the week and how impressive he is to me. And they actually went and got some more players this offseason to make that defense even better. And last year they gave the 49ers major issues then without, I mean, a bunch of no-name players and Danielle Hunter, basically, and an old Harrison Smith. So then you add some talent to this defense. You give him that talent and allow him to go crazy. I mean, he gives the 49ers fits. I mean, Brock Purdy turned the ball over twice last year in this game. Everybody was like, oh, it's the concussion. Well, he turned it over again twice today, had a couple more that easily could have been intercepted. It just wasn't a great game overall by the offense. And so one has to wonder, you can say Kyle Shanahan, we can go offensive line, you can say Purdy. I think that there's a lot of ways we can go with this. But the question I have is this finally? Because I'm watching the Jets. They're not looking good again today against the Tennessee Titans. Maybe they're just not a very good team whatsoever. The defense has given up some big plays to Will Levis and Calvin Ridley. So maybe, just maybe, the Jets defense, the thought was, oh, this is a formidable, really good defense because they were good last year. And the assumption is they'll just stay good. Well, maybe they just played their first real good defense, and this is the CMC effect. Is that a possibility?
No, because, Jesse, they moved the ball. Like, this wasn't a case where this team couldn't move the ball down the field. They had long drives. They just didn't execute. What is an issue, and maybe if this is a CMC thing, their red zone offense isn't as good as it was last season, right? They're not scoring as many touchdowns as they did last season. Is that a lack of CMC because Jordan Mason isn't as effective in the backfield, maybe catching the ball as CMC is, or he still doesn't have the respect of the opposing defenses when he's coming out of the backfield? Is that a Brandon Ayuk still isn't 100% and he's not running routes the way he should? Is it Kyle Shanahan is not calling the right plays? Is it Brock Purdy is taking too many? It could be a lot of things. I don't know if we could pinpoint it on, hey, CMC being lost is why this offense looks this way, because I think Jordan Mason has done plenty to give this offense to not miss CMC as much as far as a rushing attack. Ultimately, Brock, I don't think CMC changes Brock Purdy's decision making, right? He's throwing.
I think it does. I think
Well,
this is where I think it might come in potentially. But
well,
keep going, keep going.
well, what I mean by that is like him making the risky throws there, because I know you're going to do the all 22 and you'll be able to answer this better
For sure.
during the week, but in all of those, in a lot of those plays, there was guys wide open that Brock Purdy just threw it into 3 men coverage and whatnot instead of taking the check down that would have gotten a easy completion and maybe not as much yardage. And I think that hero ball is what I'm talking about. Maybe if CMC is there, he feels more confident to check that ball. But maybe because CMC is not there, he feels confident. He feels like, hey, I could do this now, type of thing. I don't know, but maybe that to that. But I still think there's a lot of open plays. I still think Brock Purdy made some bad decisions.
No, I don't disagree with that. I think that there were plays to be made, and if for some reason he just wasn't seeing the field well, was holding on to the ball. There was a sack. I think it was on the second to last drive. They ended up scoring, but there was a sack on that drive where Debo was wide open, right over the middle, and he was looking right at him, and he just sat there and didn't make a decision, which is odd for him, and took a sack. But I guess that the reason why I think it could be a CMC effect, and we'll see how it goes going forward. I'm not sure how it's going to play out, but and truth be told, these were all the reason I was cool with CMC going out is I felt like all 4 of these games were beyond winnable. So I'm like, all right, cool. They'll start 5-0 anyways. Doesn't really matter. Like I'm the guy that said CMC's one of the more important pieces and went toe to toe with Grant and coach about it. But even I was like, hey, without CMC, these 4 games, these are the perfect games. Just get in, get out, get your wins, and then hopefully CMC comes back. But I can't help but to think, and it's a small sample size, so I don't know for sure, but I can't help but to think how much more comfortable Jimmy G looked for a 5-game stretch when CMC was here. Remember, he had never gone more than 2 games without a turnover, and he went 4 straight games without a turnover when CMC was here. I think he had 1 turnover in 5 games with CMC, including 4 straight without it. And I'm like, God, I mean, that jitteriness in the pocket, the way that he played almost completely changed with CMC. But it was a 5-game sample, and then he was gone. Well, Purdy, we've basically seen him with CMC. We've seen him without some other players, but CMC being that constant check down, I think helps a quarterback so they don't have to speed up their processing. I felt like there were multiple times today. And again, the all 22 will tell us the truth. We'll watch that. Hopefully tomorrow we have some time, guys, but we'll watch it. But the way that I saw it is, man, he was speeding up his clock when he didn't need to. There were multiple times where I felt like guys were open and he would either look the other way really quick. He was just kind of panicking. When CMC's there and he has that constant check down option, it's like, it doesn't matter. I can go through these reads, and if things get tight, I know I can just dump it off to CMC and be protected. And I felt like him not being there today was a big impact on this offense. And also Kyle Shanahan and his play calling, we know he loves CMC, right? So it could have affected his game calling too.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the checkdowns were there on numerous times. He just didn't take it. I wonder, Jesse, because we're saying the CMC thing and all this kind of stuff. The one thing that maybe is an elephant in the room and we don't talk about it because of Brock Purdy's personality, this is a contract year for him. And the talk and the narrative around Brock Purdy is he's Brock Purdy because of his weapons. Is Brock Purdy hearing that and saying, hey, I got to show that I can lead this team and I could win with this team to get the contract that I want? I think people are looking at Brock Purdy and like, hey, he's not this type of guy that wants the biggest contract or cares about that type of stuff, but he is human. He has been making the least amount of money out of pretty much every single quarterback that's in the league right now. To me, it looked like more hero ball. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see when and if CMC comes back, if that changes. But to me, Juszczyk is still back there. He's a great check down option. Mason is there. He's a check down option. So to me, maybe they haven't been proven as much as CMC as a check down option. But if it's just about the check down, it's there, Jesse. He's just not throwing it there. So to
Yeah,
me,
I just think his clock is speeding up, though, is what I'm saying. I think just knowing that CMC is not out there, I think it just is making him go. And again, I could be wrong. It's one game. Who knows? I just felt like today he was in panic mode more than I've ever seen him. I feel like the one thing that, not the one thing, but one of the things I should say that I think Brock does really, really well is stay extremely calm when things seem to be chaotic. I feel like when the chaos happens, he plays really, really calm. Now, Mason, a lot of people are going to say, well, Mason played really well. So how can you say you're missing CMC that much? It's not about Mason. Like, Mason's going to do his thing running the ball. He's a very, very good player as well. It's, to me, more in the pass game, especially because you got receivers right now that aren't getting the most separation like they would normally, especially, Ayuk, because he's just not in shape or whatever's going on. But I feel like CMC opens things up for the receivers because there's so much focus on him. And I really think on 3rd and 4th downs, you saw it most. Brock Purdy panicked more than I've ever seen him. And Kyle Shanahan just wasn't in his bag. I just feel like all three of those things you can attribute to, man, if CMC was there in the pass game, I feel like that game goes completely different, but I could be wrong.
Could be. I mean, I just think that ultimately we've seen Purdy play really, really well against the blitz. I think Brian Flores confused the hell out of Kyle Shanahan this game. And I mean, even before CMC, I mean, has Brock Purdy ever played without CMC? I don't know. I could be wrong there. But
no, last game in this game, that was it.
Yeah. So I don't know. Look, I mean, obviously, I still think, the sky isn't falling. This game was still winnable, Jesse, with all of the mistakes and all that, just ultimately too many turnovers, right? A block punt, the interceptions, the fumbles, like you can't play that dirty, I guess, in the sense like unclean game and on top of that have execution issues. And it was just they just ran out of time because they ultimately were just not playing clean enough to win this game. They didn't deserve to win this game ultimately.
No, that's true.
No, that's
very
that's
a
to
good
win
point.
at the end of it. So to me, I don't think the sky is falling.
I don't think the sky's falling either. No.
Yeah. But there's a lot to clean up, and maybe you get this humility check now and fix these things, and it'll help them throughout the season.
Yeah, maybe. I hope so. I really hope so. But I think that one thing I tweeted out yesterday, and I'm curious to see, it's so hard when you're watching a game on TV to really pick this up. You're mostly ball watching. You're watching the pause. You're mostly watching the ball as much as possible. And wherever the ball goes, you're paying attention to. But one thing I talked about was, Pooney deserves all the praise in the world, but Solomon Thomas and Javon Kinlaw aren't exactly a great test, in my opinion. And I felt like this was a first real test for him because of the way that the Vikings show pressure throughout the course of a game. They can really confuse things. And I'm not saying I don't know how great or bad he played, if at all. Like, he might have been just fine, but I'm curious to see it. And then Mason last week, believe it or not, only had 5 pass blocking snaps. So is he truly a good protector as a running back? Because that's something that CMC does very well. So I don't know how that looked either. And maybe they both looked fine and it had nothing to do with it. But those were two things I was really curious about going into this game. How did Pooney look in this scenario? And how did Mason look as a pass protector? And, the all-22 will eventually tell us. But, out of curiosity, I'm excited to watch that film and see.
Yeah, I was looking to also see, who's running back 2 for this team, and we don't have one. Garindo got one play.
Garindo was,
and
non-existent.
Then got shut down for whatever reason. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan doesn't trust anybody behind Mason in that running back room. It was still, it was Juszczyk and Debo that were the guys back there. So, there's a lot of question marks. I still think that's there, but there's a lot of question marks for every team in the league right now. It's not just the 49ers that are going through this. We're just hyper focused on them because that's our team. But once again, I just want to say, the sky is not falling, but yes, there needs to be things that are fixed.
For sure. All right, we got a ton of super chats, so let's try to get through these. Jason says, "Can we stop getting our O lineman at Costco? Unreal." I feel like Costco's catching a stray here. I don't know about you, but I feel like Costco makes really good products. and honestly, if they had got them at Costco, they can return them. Costco's return policy is incredible. So I feel like Costco's catching a stray here that doesn't need to be caught. I love Costco. Cryptic says offense didn't have an identity. That's a good point. I mean, to me, it seemed pretty clear early on that Mason was going to be really hard to stop. And I tweeted it out and I said it to Marco as well. I said, run the ball with Mason until they prove they can stop it. And they just didn't for whatever reason, and I felt like it was there all day to be had. Double B Studio says Niners defense struggles on third down. Their offense struggled on third down as well. Double B Studio says, is it scheme that's failing on third down? Man, I think there's a lot of things that go into it. I mean, you had just talked about it. I don't know if you're talking specifically defense, but there were some interesting things. We're going to talk about Sorensen here in a minute. Jason Letts says Fred Warner is looking like defensive player of the year. Dude, if it wasn't for Fred Warner, they're not in that game at all. At all. Brother Bob, I mean, their 2 touchdowns came off of his turnovers. Brother Bob says we got out coached on both sides. My Traeger knows good cooking, maybe? I don't know. I'm trying to put that together. Keith Murphy says, congrats to Minnesota. They just beat us. No excuse. Yeah, they definitely did. I mean, low key, the score doesn't show how dominant they were. Mr. G 49ers says, I have an issue with tempo. Why doesn't Kyle ever change it up? It's too predictable. Yeah, I mean, people talk about the 4th downs, but he went for him today. So, Shawnee Boy says 3 first plays were passing. The game was over. But here's what I want to say though. I do agree with that. However, if Brock Purdy is in fact the franchise quarterback worth making $60 million, I mean, if the Chiefs start out with 3 passing plays, or the Bills, or the Rams, the Texans, if they start out with 3 passing plays, their fans aren't going, "Oh, dude, why aren't you running the ball?" They're like, "Yeah, no, that's our franchise quarterback. We get it." So there is a little bit of that as well.
I don't even think it's all that. Like, the passing plays gets the most amount of all pros involved, right? Kittle, Debo, Ayuk are all, all pros. You can't get them involved on a running play. So technically you're supposed to have, those passing plays. We should be, what's it called, at a advantage over any team, because there's not that many teams that have that many all pros to combat that. So you would think that, but still, what does that say about our team, that we still feel like we're more confident when the rushing game is, is being utilized more? It just kind of points to really what, what's going on with this team.
For sure. Looks lost all game on both sides. Yeah, they did look lost. Mike Drops the Monster says losses on Brock and Kyle. Defense gave the offense ample opportunity. Mason ran his butt off. More on Kyle than Brock, but both were bad. Yeah, it wasn't on the defense, that's for sure. Special teams they get a little bit of this. Brother Bob says, holy crap, Sunil blames Kyle Levy. We're on the same page again. Shady Luke says there was 4 big-time NFL YouTubers who said they didn't like the matchup for the 49ers going in. I didn't like the matchup for the 49ers going in. Now, I picked the 49ers to win, as I should have. They were the favorites. But I think I had it 27-17, but I said that there was like a 20% chance that Minnesota could win the game. And there was more than that, apparently. So, Real OBJ says McKivitz needs to go. Trent extension looks bad, as does the CMC one at this point. Gunzy says Brock and the O-line were so freaking bad. The secondary on third down was embarrassing. Okay. And Dave Barclay says, hey, Brother Bob, I was thinking of you on that. And then Double B Studio says the Niners should be looking like the Saints. The Saints look really good right now. Shady Luke says, also unpopular opinion, call me crazy, but Fred Warner is the most consistent and impactful player on the team. I don't know if it's unpopular at this point. Shady Luke, by the way, Philadelphia Eagles fan. I agree. Right now, that's clearly the case. Bosa hasn't been consistent. CMC hasn't even played. Trent's still getting in shape. Ayuk is non-existent for a big chunk of the game. Debo looked pretty good. Brock's been extremely inconsistent. I don't know. Cryptic says, still believe Ayuk is better than T.O. He needs to be consistently open. He doesn't seem to be doing that. I don't think he ever said T.O. He said
No.
than
That was
T.O.
on me. I said that he has the potential to be better than T.O. I thought he could be, but clearly that's not showing right now. But then again, I don't think Ayuk has played with the quarterbacks that T.O. has. So
Mike Drops with Monster says Purdy is Favre without the arm. He plays hero ball. That is not a good comp. We've talked about that before. Mike Drops with Monster says so real. Sunil, my guy, Trump 2024. Well, I'm not talking politics in here. G.I. Jones says Vikings had Kyle's playbook. He might have left it at the hotel. Wiley Jones says, I'm really rethinking Kyle. If you need 7 all pros to be a genius, you're not a real genius. Yeah. Carl says the good news is that Mason is good and Purdy isn't worth $60 million a year. I don't know that that's good news. I think we should want Purdy to be worth every bit of $60 million.
I think he missed the comma. I think he was saying the good news is Mason is good, comma,
and Purdy's. Okay. That might be fair. All right. That changes things. Mike Drops with Monza says Brock's issue was Flores' defense cards up early. Yeah. And Seattle, I think, did end up winning. Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate you. 99 cents. Mike Drops with Monza says Brock isn't a franchise quarterback. 60 million roster malpractice. First of all, they haven't paid him yet. Shawnee Boy says we are a running team. Run game opens up the passing. I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying if you have a true franchise quarterback, we can't get mad that when they throw the ball. Keith Murphy says if it wasn't for all pro Fred, we would have been down 20. That is a fact. Mike Drops with Monster says Kyler to Harrison, 2 TDs, 14-0 Arizona. Jeez. Harrison bouncing back. Gen 3 Cali says 6 sacks on Brock is an O-line issue. Not always. Not all sacks are always on the offensive line. I'm not saying the offensive line isn't good, and we'll watch the all 22, but there's at least one sack that I remember specifically where he had a wide open Debo. He's looking at Debo, and he just held the ball and then eventually got sacked. Not all sacks are an offensive line problem. Viet Nguyen says, Nguyen says, Vikings just got our number, bro. No excuses. Yeah, that seems to be the case. Keith Murphy says Ravens fans would be pissed if they were throwing. Yeah, but Lamar's also the most elite running quarterback in the NFL. Andrew, and if Brock was that, then we wouldn't be mad, right? Andrew says, fun fact, we haven't beat the Vikings in Minnesota since 93. It's unfortunate because we have so much talent and can't capitalize. No, we definitely knew that going into the game. And then the last one is from Tristan. He says, Bosa had 2 impactful sacks. Keep it going. Yeah, he definitely did. He was kind of out, though, after the ankle injury, for sure. Let's talk a little bit about defense, though, in Sorensen. I think we gave him a lot of praise, or at least I did. I didn't do a show with you, but I would think you would probably agree with this. I think Sorensen in his first game called a really good defensive game last week. This week, there's some things. Justin Jefferson was bracket coverage he had Odom pressing him and then had Jair Brown over the top. There was no corner in sight, and that's how a 97-yard touchdown happens. Actually eerily similar to a situation last year where Wilkes got blamed because of the 0 blitz, bad timing. That kind of blew the game open. This was similar to that late in the second quarter. 97 yards, horrible defensive play on that one, play call on that one. What do you think overall was Sorensen?
I mean, I don't know how much was play calling. I mean, the 49ers have a weakness in there with their safeties when it comes to coverage, right? So if they're somehow gonna end up where they really have to cover, that's going to be an issue. How much was play calling? How much was execution? I mean, there was that play where Naylor, is his name? I always get
Jalen Naylor.
Jalen,
Jalen
right?
Naylor. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nailer. It spells
yeah.
it very different, but yeah,
I
that's
mean,
his last name.
there was a play where he was just wide open in the end zone, right? And
From the
it looked
play
like,
action. Yeah.
yeah, it looked like, Mooney missed an assignment there or whatnot. So
Mhm.
I don't know how much was play call. That once again, I think you have to go to the all 22 to see what's going on with that.
Mhm.
I think the things that we can mention, that we can see, is, look, and you tweeted it during the game, like, this run defense still is porous, right? Like, they were able to run. Chandler comes in, their backup running back, and was able to put up good yardage and things of that nature. And I think that ultimately safety coverage wasn't good. I don't know why. I guess they didn't have confidence that these guys could play their receivers man coverage. I don't know. To me, maybe I would have, played man on one side and bracket, Jefferson, or have two people, like, have the safety kind of shadow and have Mooney Ward one-on-one with Jefferson. I don't know. I don't know the X's and O's that good, but it did seem like they changed, I guess, a little bit of how they played. So maybe that is on Sorensen. This is a press man team that wasn't playing very much man. So potentially that is that's on the game plan, right?
Yeah, I mean they should play a lot more press man. I mean the guts of the defense is still, for whatever reason, cover 3, cover 4, mixed in cover 6. Uh, I don't remember throughout the course of the game, but again, I'm watching where the ball's at for the most part. So I could be stepping on it here. When I go back and watch the film, I might have a completely different thought process. But one of the things that I was really excited about was that Staley was going to bring these exotic blitzes. You watch what Minnesota does, man. Everybody's near the line of scrimmage. They're moving around, bailing out, coming back in. Who's going to blitz? Who's not? Like, there's a lot of creativity to that defense. I felt like today was more of what it used to be, a lot less creativity. Last week, I felt like there was good creativity. This week, felt like it was just like rush for. We know that the interior of that offensive line is awful in Minnesota, and I felt like the guys up front, Hargrave and Malik Collins, did a good job exposing the interior of that offensive line for big chunks of that game. But there was just not a lot of creativity, and they fell into zones and people were getting open. To me, I was super disappointed. Again, and I don't know how much of this is on Sorensen. I know that one play call was on Sorensen, and that was absolutely atrocious. I don't know how that matchup happens against the best receiver in the game, but you deserve to get 97 yards and a touchdown hung on you when you do that. But outside of that, the most disappointing thing was really that final drive.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, there's no Jefferson, there's no Addison, there's no Hawkinson. Aaron Jones goes out, and you can't stop them from driving down the field and kicking a field goal. That was embarrassing to watch. So is that on the defense? Is that on Sorensen? Is that on both? I don't know. I don't know if that was an execution thing or what have you, but that was the most embarrassing thing from that whole game, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think overall, I mean, the defense, this wasn't their best game, but I still do think that they're the best unit on this team still. I would say, the offense, I think, put the defense in bad situations, and the defense bailed out this offense to keep the game close multiple times, right? Not only, Fred Warner, but, keeping them out of the end zone when there were short fields and stuff like that. So I don't want to pile too much on the defense, because ultimately I don't think they're the reason why this team lost.
No. I agree.
I think it's more the offense not being able to score enough points to make to give the defense the freedom to do that, right? Because ultimately, Jesse, when the 49ers have a lead, this defense becomes really, really, really hard to score on, because they're able to play a little bit freer with their pass rush and things of that nature. When it's close, it's not that way, right? So I think that's complementary football type of thing. The defense, I think, ultimately, just ran out of gas, but that's because they gave ample opportunity to the offense. The offense didn't take advantage of it.
Yeah, most certainly. Keith says maybe we should have kept Sam Darnold. Listen, Sam Darnold also tried to give that game away multiple times. He had the backwards throw for no reason to Aaron Jones. Then he had another play where he got intentional grounding. He had another the one pick he had was awful in the red zone. And then he had another one where I think they ended up kicking a field goal, but in the end zone, throw it directly to Odom. It's like, dude, you're trying to give the game away. Sam is not a good football player, which makes this even more embarrassing that they lost to Sam Darnold with all of his weapons out. Gosh, man, how do you let that happen? That's so frustrating. So dang frustrating. Another thing they need to clean up is special teams, man. I mean, again, we didn't talk about it a ton, but you got Cowing with the fumble. Mm-hmm. You got the blocked punt. I mean, you can't win games. And last week, the special teams was so great, right? Like Moody, 6 field goals and good returns, whatever. Debo wasn't good. The lone return that I remember him having. It's something they need to sharpen up, man. And it seems to continuously be an issue, even though they bring in good special teams players.
Yeah, I mean, Wisnowski I was confused. He was like shell shocked. You know, they said it was his second punt ever that was blocked. It looked like he didn't believe that he was blocked because he didn't even try to play on the ball or anything like that. I was just like, and he's like a rugby guy, so he's not afraid of contact or whatever the case may be. Early on, I thought that the first few series, Debo had some questionable decision making. I mean, he had a long run by Mason, got brought back because of a hold that he made. I think that him on kick return, ultimately, he should have just downed it. He's still trying to make a play and, starting with worse field position or whatever the case may be. And then obviously Cowing, is probably never going to get another opportunity to return a punt after that muff. But I mean, still got to give, Moody is still 100% on his field goal kicks, right? So he's at least a bright spot for right now. But yes, ultimately special teams still isn't a strength for the 49ers. And this game obviously was a weakness.
Carl, I tweeted this out when they gave up the 97-yard touchdown. I was like, I blame Wilkes. People were so mad. Just let it go. Deshaun DeVoe says it's not embarrassing to lose to Steve Young. That's a very good point. I didn't even think about it. Didn't even cross my mind at all. What did you think about Kyle Shanahan going forward on the fourth downs? I know it's kind of like a afterthought at this point because they lost, right?
Yeah.
But Kyle's not normally that aggressive. They had 3 fourth downs. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it never happens again. I think that he tried it. He's like, this is why I take the points when I could get the points. The whole game would have been different if I would have just kicked the field goal. And I think that, hey, everybody that wanted Kyle to change and, hey, go be aggressive and all that kind of stuff, Kyle Shanahan's going to look you directly. And when Grant Cohn asks the question to him and say, I tried it, it didn't work, we're going back to what we know. Manalytics, not analytics or whatever. Analytics, not manalytics, whatever the case may be.
Dude, oh man, yeah, that was interesting because they got the one and then they didn't score on the other one. Van Ginkel, by the way, and he was brought up. This is why you watch behind enemy lines, because he was talked about pretty extensively in that. And this is why I love bringing on opposing content creators, and they just educate the heck out of you as far as what their team looks like. And Van Ginkel is a player that I think was super underrated in Miami. It was a great pickup by them, but dude, he got his hands on multiple passes from Brock Purdy, tipped the ball in the air. One was on that big fourth down play in the end zone. Another one at the end of the game was almost intercepted. And then another one, no, I think that was the only. But dude, those were big plays, keeping the 49ers out of the end zone both times. And then the only one that I had an issue with of the fourth downs was the one near midfield. I didn't understand that. That one immediately I didn't like. And then they just couldn't get anybody open, or Brock Purdy couldn't find him. tried to run for it, ended up being short. It was an illegal formation. Just everything was wrong on that play. That's the only fourth down play that I actually had an issue with of the three, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more kind of like, I'm glad that he's showing it, because it's something now that opposing teams have to, know that, hey, potentially the 49ers will go for it on fourth. So it's an added wrinkle to there. I would question maybe some of the play calling. Maybe that's the CMC effect, Jesse. Back to your earlier point, because I think those first downs are a lot easier when you have those fourth down are a lot easier when you have CMC, and the way the defense is going to play based off of him in the backfield. But yeah, I mean, I don't think the play calls looked that well. And look, man, once again, I gotta, I'm the biggest Kyle Shanahan fan. You're used to. I didn't see Brock Purdy bootleg, right? He was in the pocket every single play. That is different, right? I'm used to seeing him kind of be able to play a little bit more free. You didn't see like the sprint outs, kind of where the guys are like wide open, and all those plays that just kind of the easy yards that we're used to seeing,
where they're coming against the grain on a play action or whatever. Yeah.
Like, we're used to seeing that 2-3 times a game. We didn't really see it that time. This game, I mean, I think ultimately Brian Flores beat Kyle Shanahan, and that's really what this game boils down to. Obviously, Purdy needs to play better, but yeah, I mean, I think this game, I think that that Brian Flores beat Kyle Shanahan, and ultimately the defense couldn't do enough to overcome that barrier. So
said it for a while, and I think it's a great call by you on those boot actions and things like that. Man, you watched the Broncos when Mike was there and Jake Plummer was on the team, because he was very nimble-footed as well. Constantly getting him to the edge and just allowing him to get free plays and free throws. There is so much you can do to protect a bad offensive line. So it's like, if you're not going to invest in a good offensive line, then invest in play calling that shields them from looking as bad as they are at times. And that's exactly it. Moving the launch point of your quarterback is the easiest way to do that. And it's not just this game. He doesn't do it a ton overall. Like I said, you go watch those Broncos games with Jake Plummer. It was like, I felt like almost every play he was getting on the edge and just throwing the ball. You could do that with Brock Purdy. I mean, Brock Purdy's extremely athletic. We've seen it multiple times. He knows how to protect himself. If for some reason there's a free rusher coming, he knows how to stop on a dime, change an arm angle, and make a throw. Those are things that he does really, really well. So why don't you just accentuate and highlight the things he does well and make his job easier and make the offensive line's job easier? I feel like that's something that just overall is missing from the playbook, from a standpoint that you could run it probably 30% of your plays and get away with it, in my opinion.
Sure. And I mean, I don't know if I agree with you I agree they're not running it enough, but I do feel like it used to be a part of this offense. So I don't know what was going on with this game plan. Yeah, but yeah, I don't think it was the best game plan. Obviously, they didn't put up the points that they should have, and ultimately that caused the loss.
Well, and we're talking about fourth down, and Keith Murphy says I didn't like the play calling on fourth down. I mean, that if there's a play to do it, it's on a fourth down play, fourth and short. Give him options, get him out, so maybe he can run. And I don't know. I just feel like there's so many options at a quarterback's disposal when he can get out. Hugo says, "Why wasn't BA targeted? Like, come on, you demand." Thank you, Hugo. Yeah, I don't. Again, all 22 is going to tell us a lot. Was he open? Was he not open? It's tough. It's very, very tough to know without watching the film. But there was a big chunk of that game where he was MIA, man. He was on a milk carton, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, these guys are called the Yak Bros. Was there any? Yeah, I mean, I think obviously Kittle had some, but those plays where you could get Debo out in the open space, Ayuk in the open space, Kittle in the open space. Like, once again, I just think that Brian Flores confused the hell out of Kyle Shanahan, and ultimately it changed the whole dynamic of what this offense looked like. So yeah, I mean that's where we go back to who is this on. I think Kyle Shanahan got dominated by Brian Flores. I put most of it on him.
Absolutely. Real quick, we've got over 1,000 watching between YouTube and X. It's been pretty steady for the whole show. Appreciate y'all for tapping in. Make sure that you also take advantage of Underdog Fantasy. Link is in the description of the YouTube channel. Promo code LSS. It's also pinned to the top of the chat. You can get a 50% deposit match up to $1,000 and one free pick. You can play daily fantasy, weekly fantasy, yearly fantasy, and do your more or lesses. Whatever it is that you like, promo code LSS is how you take advantage of it. Appreciate Underdog for being a great sponsor. All right. We've talked about this game, and we're going to talk about it throughout the week. So once you watch the film, things change, opinions change, whatever. So I don't want to beat this loss to death, but I do want to talk about how we go forward from here, because it is just one loss, and the 49ers have an opportunity next week against the Rams to bounce back. We'll be in the building and get back on track. Now, we know CMC's out for at least 3 more games. Things haven't been great offensively as far as finishing drives, but I think next week's a very, very winnable game. And there wasn't everything today that happened wasn't bad. There was still some positives that we can take from it. So let's talk about how we go forward, maybe mix in some of the positives that did happen in today's game.
Yeah, and another positive going into the Rams game next week, other than you and I are both going to be at that game, which is great, is that's a banged up team, right? So we're not playing the Rams at their best. So they're dealing with a lot of injuries as well. I think that, some of the positive, obviously Fred Warner, stud, Nick Bosa being able to get 2 sacks, I think is a really good sign. Moody still, is kicking the ball really, really well. And Mason is a bona fide, RB1, another game with over 100 yards, or at least 100 yards, got a touchdown. So look, the once again, I think this is going to boil down to Kyle Shanahan looking at the film, realizing, look, I'm not utilizing what I have well. Figure out, hopefully what he missed on Brian Flores's defensive scheme, because ultimately I think more people are going to try to emulate it against the 49ers, because that offense did not look good. So ultimately, I think we got to start utilizing Brock Purdy's mobility and start, being able to get some of these underneath passes that could lead to yak, some of the crosses, things like that, which, right now it just seemed like Purdy's in the pocket and, throwing in the middle of the field. I don't know if that's always, his strength. I think him on the move, throwing to the sidelines, I think needs to be utilized a little bit more.
Well, I'll say this, next week's going to be interesting, because the Rams look like they're going to lose this game. I know it's very early still, but they're down 21-0, and they're a banged up team. However, I think they're going to get both their left tackle and right tackle back next week. They're at home, and they're going to be desperate. If they're 0-2, they're going to be a desperate team to win that game. And I think desperate teams are always ones that you have to take seriously, especially in division and on the road. The 49ers should be desperate as well, coming off of a loss. There's no way they want to start 1-2, especially with a loss being in division to a team that would then also be 1-2 and have the tiebreaker on you until later in the season when you play again. So it'll be an interesting game for sure next week, and the Rams should be a little bit healthier going into it as well. So, but I think there's some things to take away. First of all, Fred Warner is an absolute savage. Moody has been very money, so he's become a player that you can rely on in the kicking game, which is extremely important. They've moved the ball. They've moved the ball well at times. I mean, last week they moved the ball very well. They couldn't punch it in the end zone on a regular basis, but they moved the ball well. There was times today, I mean, they had a 99.5-yard drive for a touchdown after the turnover, Aaron Jones turnover, 99.5 yards, and they moved the ball pretty easily. At the end of the game, I know that it was prevent, but still they were executing. They were moving the ball very, very well there too. So it's not as if they haven't been able to move the ball or getting completely stuck. Now the points didn't come today, and that was frustrating. I'll also say this: Brock Purdy is normally somebody who protects the ball pretty well. Today he didn't, for whatever reason. The ball was in harm's way on a regular basis. And even in the past, when he's put the ball in harm's way, he usually ends up getting pretty lucky on those plays. And so the luck didn't go in his favor today. It is what it is. Next week, I think you're playing a defense that can easily be had. And I think that Brock Purdy can have a monster game. I feel like there's things that we can glean from this game. Yes, it was very frustrating. No, they shouldn't have lost to Minnesota. Yes, there was a lot that went wrong, but also there were things that were kind of crazy that happened in their favor. A blocked punt. Like, how often does that happen? You know what I mean? So there's some things that like easily probably don't happen next week. And you can see a scenario where the 49ers can go into Los Angeles and win that game pretty handily, potentially. So we'll see how it plays out. But I think there's some positives that came out of this game as well. It's not like they're just a dog water team. They just played like dog water at times today.
For sure. And once again, like, you play as bad as they did, the amount of turnovers they had, the mistakes that they made in coverage that led to touchdowns. And ultimately, they still, were in a position to win this game. But unfortunately, they just didn't execute. I think the biggest thing, Jesse, that hasn't been an issue under Kyle Shanahan as of late is the red zone, right? So that's something that hopefully they could clean up and figure out what's going on there, because even last game where they were scoring on every single play, they weren't scoring touchdowns, and that's something that obviously we need to see more of. Today they weren't able to. Once again, they were struggling in the red zone. So I think that's the biggest thing that I want to see, next week. But we got some time till then.
Yeah, absolutely. We do. We'll end it on this. Hugo says teams are not going to respect demon mode JP Mason till the 49ers start letting him catch. Like, come on. He bought a jugs machine. He's got hands. He's a good route runner too. I'll say that. He may not be a CMC, but I think he can definitely be used in the passing game. 808 Niner says the last drive we lost to their backup skill guys. Yeah, we did. We talked about that. That was not a good look by any means. But that being said, there is more football to watch. There have been some crazy, crazy things around the league. The Ravens are now 0-2. They lost to the Raiders. Right now, the Rams are looking like they're going to go 0-2. The Bucks. I mean, the NFC South was supposed to be a terrible division, and they've got some bad teams. Don't get me wrong, but the Saints are 2-0 and the Bucks are 2-0, and they've beaten some good teams. So, there's some crazy things happening. It's very early in the NFL season. I would say what we learned is CMC matters. The 49ers are a good team, but they can certainly be had. And they're going to have to bide their time until these skill position players, really their best players, get up to snuff. Trent Williams is still not fully Trent Williams. Brandon Ayuk is fully not Brandon Ayuk. CMC still hasn't played. Hopefully he can. Greenlaw still hasn't played. Hufanga still hasn't played. So they're going to have to buy their time and find a way to get some wins with these guys kind of getting rounded into form and back to where they need to be. And they're going to have to take these teams very, very seriously. That being said, Sunil, thank you so much for joining me on a Sunday after the game. Go enjoy the rest of football chat. Thank you so much. I'll be back tomorrow. Much love, y'all. Peace.